Hello everybody, Ignatius L. Jackson, CPA PFS here. All right, so today we're talking about Trump accounts. All right, so Trump accounts are something that's going to become a reality as of July 4th of 2026. That's when the first accounts can be opened and actually funded with contributions. Actually, I believe they can be opened before then, but they won't be able to be funded with any contributions until July 4th of 2026. And so guidance has recently come out about how to do these accounts, and so things are moving along. It looks like these are going to become reality. The final result of the accounts are actually a lot better than the way they originally drafted it in the bill. The way they originally drafted in the bill, I actually despised of them completely. Now I'm kind of like partially okay with them, but only in limited uses, okay? So I'll just get into that now. So generally speaking, you're going to probably only want to use these if you have an employer or a nonprofit or a government entity that wants to contribute to your kid's future, but they want you to have restrictions on the ability to pull it out or do things with it before they reach the age of 18. To me, that's the greatest benefit of these accounts, is it forces parents to save a certain amount for their kids' future, for any amounts that either they put into it or you have others put into it, like companies or your employer or nonprofit, etc. Right? And so from that standpoint, I think it could be super beneficial, super powerful. Like we just had the Dells, I think Michael Dell, and I forget his wife's name, I apologize, from Dell Corporation that does the computers. Billionaires, right? They, I think $6.5 billion, something like that. Basically $250 per child under the age of 10 years old that doesn't qualify for the credit from the federal government. They're going to put $250 into an account for those children if they live in an area that has a median income of $150,000 or less. I mean, pretty cool announcement, right? So that I think is a place where these Trump accounts are pretty awesome and can provide some good savings and a jump start for some of the youth that are in the world today, to hopefully change some of the financial wherewithal of some of these younger kids, okay? And hopefully, you know, during this time, we're also increasing the financial literacy of, or financial education, whatever word you want to use, right, of the youth, to where when they do reach the age of 18, they know what to do with that money. Hopefully, they leave it in there and let it continue to grow. Because if they let some of these funds grow for 60 years until they retire, they will have a huge jump start on their retirement, okay? And if they just start adding a little bit to it when they start working each year, they start adding a little bit to it each year, they're just gonna really have a really great start on their retirement. And they won't have to make or save quite as much to be able to live a comfortable life in retirement, okay? When I first heard about these accounts coming about, one of the things I thought people were talking about was that it could be a Social Security replacement, which I think is an interesting topic. If you've ever heard me talk about Social Security, which is probably for another video and another day, I hate Social Security. I think it's the dumbest thing that we ever created as a country. It is I won't go as far as saying a scam, but it is a horrible program. The fact that we're required to put 12%, a little over 12%, into Social Security every paycheck that you make, every dollar you make, and you pretty much never see anywhere near that much when you actually retire and start collecting Social Security, doesn't nearly come back to you, right? That's horrible. That's a horrible program. We have to change it. It doesn't make sense that it's that way. All right, Social Security is not invested either in the stock market, real estate, nothing except for treasuries. And we know how horrible treasuries have been in terms of paying interest, except for like the last 3 or 4 years, but that's not even staying on top of inflation pretty much. So Social Security, again, another topic for another day, but I have my issues with that. So if this is one of the ways that they are looking to either supplement or maybe someday get rid of Social Security, I think that's probably a good path for it. But, there's some things that are not as beneficial with these accounts, which is why I wouldn't necessarily recommend that parents put their own money into these accounts. I think there's other accounts that are better useful for your own money and more tax advantageous for you putting your own money into the account for the kids, more flexible, but it requires you to have more discipline, because a lot of those other accounts you can actually pull the money back out and use it instead of letting it sit there and grow. And so you have to have that discipline to let it sit there and grow and not really use it. And if you can do that, then you're also giving your child a huge head start into their future. Okay, so let's just talk about some of the key things about the Trump accounts. Okay, like I said, they're available contributions available starting July 4th of 2026 for kids that are born between that are U.S. citizens and born between December 31st of 24 and January 1st of 29. So basically, if your birth date is in 2025 all the way through 2028, you will get a $1,000 contribution to your Trump account to kickstart your savings as a child, okay? That comes from the federal government into your Trump account, all right? Chances are they're probably gonna extend that, and kids into the future will probably get the same thing, but as of right now, that's kind of the initial phase of that, okay? Companies, like employers and stuff like that, can contribute up to $2,500 a year to a kid's Trump account, okay? The maximum contribution from all sources is $5,000 per year. So if you have your company contributing $2,500 per year, that means the most you could put in as a parent for that Trump account is $2,500. And also grandparents can do this, aunts, uncles, siblings, and basically anyone can put money into the Trump account for that kid. The account essentially up until age 18 is restricted, like I said. You can't really pull anything out unless the child dies, for the most part. There's, I think, maybe a couple other exceptions in there, but they're very, very limited exceptions. And it's not just because the parent needs money or wants money. It's like it has to be a serious exception in order for you to be able to access those funds before a child reaches age 18. Okay. Investments. The investment in the account, it is invested in the stock market, and it has to be invested in a fund like an S&P 500 fund or Russell 1000 fund or something like that, right? It's going to have to be invested in some sort of ETF or mutual fund that follows some sort of index. Dow Jones, S&P 500, Russell 1000, there's probably a couple others out there that I'm not thinking about, but it has to be some sort of fund that follows that. And so that gives you opportunity to have some of the great growth in these accounts that a lot of us have experienced for the last 5 to 10 years. I mean, the S&P 500 in the last 10 years has experienced about 15% annual growth, okay? That's pretty awesome, pretty stinking awesome, right? And so if there's any sort of continuation of that kind of average annual growth rate, then these accounts can really do some serious damage. I mean, if you keep them invested for 60 years and you're able to achieve a growth rate like that for 60 years, I mean, that's pretty awesome. Now, likely the growth rate is going to be something lower than that, probably be in the 10 to 12% range, maybe, something around that. But I mean, we have had a very nice stock market the last, 10 years, but it's always a possibility that it could stay that high. We just don't know. Okay. A lot of factors that kind of go into that. You do not get a tax deduction for putting money into these Trump accounts. Okay. No tax deduction for putting money into the Trump accounts unless you're a corporation or a company, basically, that is contributing to your employees. If you're contributing to your employees, kids, that is a deductible expense for the company, okay? But in terms of an individual contribution, you don't get a tax deduction for putting the money into the account for the kids. So that's where like a 529 might be good because you get a state tax deduction for a lot of states, but there's other reasons why you may not want to do a 529. Again, another video another time. So after the age of 18, the account starts to act like a traditional IRA where you have a lot of the same rules and stuff like that would follow for that, with a few exceptions, okay? One of those exceptions are that you are not able to pull money out still, even after the age of 18, more than 50% of the balance, okay? And at the age of 25, you can pull out the other 50% of the balance, but it has to be for higher education, small business startup, or a down payment for a home, okay? So after age 18, you can pull out up to 50% of the balance and use it for anything you want, okay? This is for the kid, by the way, not for the parents. The kids can use it for whatever they want. And after age 25, they can pull out the rest of the funds if they want and use it for either higher education, small business startup, or home down payment. Okay. After age 30, the full account becomes accessible for whatever use you want. All right. But now here's the kicker for these accounts, which is what I don't like. The withdrawals will either be taxed as long-term capital gains or ordinary income, and they are not tax-free. Okay. Now, granted, at the kids' income tax rate at age 30, it's very possible that their tax bracket will be low enough to where it's probably okay that they're being taxed. But if you have a kid that hits it right, they may not want to get taxed on that. So they might want to actually try to leave that in there. And so at that point, you could basically just roll it over to an IRA and just let it continue to grow inside the IRA. Okay. A regular IRA at that point, which would have all the same rules and requirements that the regular IRAs do in terms of pulling out before 59 and a half and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So yeah, Michael and Susan Dell. So Susan is Michael's wife's name. I apologize, Susan. Didn't mean to not mention you by name. But yeah, they pledged $6.25 billion to fund $250 grants for the first 25 million eligible children under the age of 11 and qualifying low-income zip codes. Okay. So yeah, if you have multiple people, multiple companies, charities doing something like that, it could be pretty stinking awesome, right? You know, most charities will probably be a little more local. It'd probably be like for an area in a local city or town or state, for example, right? But these guys did it for places all over the country, which is pretty awesome. Probably one of the largest contributions ever made for a single purpose. I think ever probably, I would imagine. I can't think of a larger contribution that was kind of tied to a single purpose before. But yeah, that's pretty awesome. So, all right, well, that was the Trump accounts. Hopefully everybody thought that was helpful understanding and information. If you're curious to know more and all the intricacies, there's plenty of information that was just released by the IRS. It was released as Notice 2025-68. It was literally just released on December 2nd. And so you can go out there and read that and to get some more information, more details that I may have left out. But I think I covered all the key aspects of the Trump account that are probably important for people to think about and understand. Moral of the story is I probably wouldn't put any additional funds into it, but if you're getting free funds from either charities or the government, then why take advantage of it? You know, go ahead and open the account, take advantage of it. Why not? It's up to, if you're a richer person, it's up to you if you want to do that or not. I know some people probably would feel bad that they're taking the funds from the government, but they did not put an income requirement. That was one thing I was really against, is they did not put an income requirement on the $1,000 contributions for newborns. I really wish they did, because this is a lot of money that's going to be going out of the federal government, and we all pay taxes for this to go out. So I'm a little irritated by that one aspect. But for rich people that don't feel like they need this for their kids and they do their own things for their kids, you always have the option of not opening the account. So if you don't open the account, you don't elect to take advantage of it, then you won't receive it. All right. But that's also cuts the other way. For lower income people, if you don't actually open the account and take advantage of it, then you don't receive it. So you have to make sure you're aware of this. Please share with any of your lower income people that you know in your community that these accounts are coming. I believe on the 2025 tax return, they're talking about having an opt-in button on there, or opt-in box on that return. Hopefully it does happen, because that makes it nice and easy when you're going through and doing your taxes. If you have kids that are under that age limit or that were born that year, then you should be able to easily opt in to opening up one of these accounts, and that way the government funds that account for you. Okay. Anyways, all right, cool. That was all for today. Hope everybody has a good one. Hope you have happy holidays, and we'll talk to you later. Peace.
This presentation is intended to be educational only and does not constitute a CPA or financial advisor-client relationship. It is always in your best interest to consult a competent legal financial advisor and/or tax professional when conducting your own personal transactions. Furthermore, it's important to do your own research when necessary to verify tax law when there's a lack of concrete guidance or gray areas of conversation.